Hello everybody, my name is Abhinav. I'm in Goa today for the KTM 390 Adventure Media Ride. This is the motorcycle, and in this particular video I'm not going to give you any opinion on the motorcycle. I will just tell you a little bit about the specifications, but not just the basic specifications. We'll go a little bit in depth, in detail. There's an embargo, so I can't share any opinion with you before the 25th of February, which is a Tuesday. I'm aiming to put this video out before that. So a very interesting thing happened when we came to Goa today. We were given a briefing on the motorcycle by the KTM India team, and it was quite an elaborate briefing. Uh, I'm just gonna debrief you on that briefing. I have my notes with me, and first and foremost, this motorcycle, you can't look at this motorcycle in isolation. KTM India is not looking at this motorcycle in isolation. They have their target firmly fixed at the Himalayan 450, which is currently the segment leader. So as soon as the presentation started, and I found this quite funny, KTM took a dig right off the bat at the Himalayan 450. They said they called the Himalayan 450 a tractor. Um, Being an adventure touring motorcycle, a tractor is not a bad thing. You need that tractor factor. You need the lowdown, torque to pull you through anywhere and any place. So, not cool, KTM. Anyway, so KTM started off by saying that uh, the global KTM company is in a bit of flux. I know you all know about the insolvency issues, them being close to declaring bankruptcy and just out of money completely. So where does that leave KTM India? KTM said that everything is going according to plan. Global wise, we will be hearing something before the 28th of February. They couldn't divulge any more details, but it is all okay on the business front. KTM said work is on future generation motorcycles. The third generation KTM Duke and the third generation KTM RC is being worked upon. The engine for that motorcycle, they fired it on a dyno already, the third generation engine. This is the second generation 390 Adventure, and the third generation 390 Adventure will anyway spawn on that third generation platform, which will happen maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, but it's gonna happen. So KTM's not going anywhere according to KTM India. Okay, KTM started off by saying that yes, in the first generation of this motorcycle, there were a lot of flaws. It was basically built on a street motorcycle, the Duke 390, and the seat height was very high. The foot peg position, nothing was according to an adventure motorcycle. It was still a great street motorcycle, but not an adventure motorcycle that we would expect from KTM and their off-road prowess. This is an India-specific motorcycle. This motorcycle is not going to be sold in Europe. The basic difference between the India-spec motorcycle and the European motorcycle is this gets a 21-inch wheel at the front, a 17-inch wheel at the rear. The suspension travel is 200 millimeters at the front, 205 at the rear, and the seat height is lower. That's about it. This is about 830 millimeters. If somebody sits on this motorcycle, I'm 5 foot 10 inches tall. I can flat-foot it with ease, absolute ease. The person who's operating the camera right now, Ankit, he's about 5'5", 5'6". He can tippy-toe on the bike, but he was extremely comfortable, with the bike also being extremely lightweight. It's about 186 kilos, so managing the weight, moving it around for somebody his height wasn't really a problem. This is not an opinion, it's just a statistic. Okay, so KTM told us that, in their presentation, they told us that they have worked on this motorcycle to make it extremely off-road friendly. So for example, if you see these plastic panels, if the camera comes close, the color on these panels, it's not a plastic panel, a white plastic panel, and the color is, just painted on it. The color is, these are pigmented panels. That means the color is embedded inside the panel. So, if the motorcycle falls, and it's an adventure bike, you're going to take it off-road, it is going to fall. When you scratch the panel, the color won't come off because the color is a part of the panel itself. The off-road ability has gone a level up. That's again because of the 21-inch wheel at the front, the 17 rear. I would have wished for an 18 rear, but then again the seat height would have gone slightly up. That's a compromise that they've made because the average Indian rider prefers a motorcycle seat height to be somewhere around 800 to 820 mm on an adventure touring motorcycle. That was the biggest grouse they had with the previous generation motorcycle. This motorcycle is out now. Right after the Enduro is going to come to the market, then the supermoto will also, not maybe a month down the line, but a few months down the line, the supermoto will be there as well. They told us, they again talked about the first generation motorcycle. They said the first bikes were very buzzy, they were vibey, and that has been fixed in this motorcycle. Um, I'm not going to comment on that, whether this motorcycle is buzz free or vibe free or anything, because that will be in a different video. Something that everybody has been extremely disappointed about. Why did India not get the Adventure R, the fully, like the souped up version with the 230 travel at the front, 230 at the rear, taller seat height, 18-inch rear wheel? KTM told us that if there is enough demand for it, they will bring that motorcycle in. KTM hasn't homologated that motorcycle, that costs a bit of money, but if there is a demand, they will homologate the motorcycle and start selling it in India. It is made here at the Chakan plant, so it shouldn't be much of a bother. It's just that you guys, people like us, we need to make some noise. We need to tell KTM, hey, we want this motorcycle, launch it in India. We're told that this bike is inspired by the styling is inspired by the 450 Dakar bike. I don't quite see it, even though it does have a tall visor at the front, and it sort of just sort of ends like in a very tapered manner with a big wheel at the front, the fender, the high fender, and everything. It's still not really a Dakar-esque bike, but I like the fact that the if the camera comes close, so the instrument console is placed high up, very in your face. So if you're standing and riding, you'll be able to see it better than other motorcycles because it's that high up. The windscreen is tall, the windscreen is wide, so it should, on paper, protect you from a lot of wind buffeting. So Dakar-inspired styling. The bike is extremely narrow, extremely slim. Um, and that is what helps people get their feet down on the ground. This time around, the foot pegs, they are forged as earlier, however they are parallel to the ground. In the earlier version, the foot pegs were canted forward. Now if you see here, the tip of the rear brake lever, this is also adjustable. You can, right now it's in the forward position, you can have it slightly back in the the rear position if you have slightly shorter feet. I have a size 11, I wear a size 11 boot, and I'm fine with that. Okay, so they said the styling of the previous generation KTM 390 Adventure. I own that motorcycle for about maybe a year or so. I rode some 5,000 kilometers all off-road on that motorcycle before I sold it and got a Tiger 1200. But they say that the styling of that motorcycle was inspired by bigger KTMs, what bigger KTMs used to look like 5 years ago. This is more modern. This is inspired by the 450 Dakar race bike. They also said that this motorcycle will come with crash accessories as standard. So you've got this plastic handguard. If the camera comes close and shows these accessories, so you've got this plastic handguard. It's just a basic plastic handguard. It doesn't have a metal spine running through it. So maybe you'll have to upgrade to bark busters at some point of time, or in a Cherbis, handguard. But for basic wind protection and basic, bushes, this should be okay. You've got a crash guard here, which is mounted to the engine mounts over here, which should protect your plastic panels in case of a fall. You've got a little slider on it, and you've got a very thin but still significant aluminium bash plate on the bike. If you're going to go extreme off-roading, I would recommend you guys to upgrade it to something a little bit more solid, because this looks like a 2mm, a 1mm or a 2mm aluminium bash plate. If you crash a motorcycle, and trust me, if you have a motorcycle like this and you take it off-road, you're going to fall. That's just the nature of the game. You're going to fall. The stickers won't just come off. The stickers they are a part of the panel, so they're going to stay there. They won't just peel off. The stickers will, you'll probably scratch them up, but that's about it, nothing more. KTM did say that this engine is 1 kg lighter than earlier, even though the bike has grown in terms of capacity. It used to be a 373cc engine earlier. It's a 399cc engine now. So even though the engine is lighter now, the bike has grown in size, right? So this motorcycle is 5 kilos heavier than the outgoing motorcycle. So I think it weighs about 186 kilos or so, wet weight, I'm not too sure, but it's still 5 kilos heavier than the outgoing motorcycle. However, the power to weight ratio this time around is still higher because the motorcycle makes 46 horsepower. It makes about 39 newton meters of torque. The power has gone up. I think the previous motorcycle was about 43 horsepower or so. So the power to weight ratio is still higher. I won't tell you how that feels on the road right now. I've ridden this motorcycle for at least 2 hours with a pillion, but I will tell you in a separate video how this motorcycle rides. The power has also been lowered down in the rev range, so the peak power comes in 1000 rpm lower than what it did on the previous motorcycle, which I think if it was about 8000 or so, it'll come down at 7000 now. All right. The one thing that I'm quite impressed by that KTM told us was this motorcycle has a crawl function. So even if you're on zero throttle, you're in the first gear or the second gear, it won't stall. That's what KTM claims. I have tested it, but I can't tell you about it just yet. I'll tell you about it in a different video. I will demonstrate it. The rear sprocket is the only change that they've made to differentiate this motorcycle's engine from, the Tube 390. So the rear sprocket is now 1 up. It used to be 45 on the previous motorcycle. It's 46 now, which on paper should give it better low down and mid-range torque. The motorcycle has an underbelly exhaust now. This is the hot topic on the internet, that how can an adventure touring motorcycle have an underbelly exhaust? What if water goes in, the engine gets flooded, the motorcycle will be ruined, etc, etc. KTM made it a point, like they drilled in the point that, we have tested it extensively. The water wading capacity of this motorcycle is 400 millimeters. So if, let's say the ground clearance of the motorcycle is 237 millimeters, the water wading capacity would be somewhere over here. So if the bike is submerged this much in water, you turn it off, you turn it on and you ride out, it should still be able to come out of water. Why do an underbelly exhaust in the first place, you might say? Because most adventure touring motorcycles do not have an underbelly exhaust. Well, it's very simple. It's mass centralization. All the weight is right there under the engine, the lowest point of the motorcycle, and it also helps save a little bit of weight. I think this exhaust system is about 2.5 kilos lighter than the previous exhaust system, so that will definitely help. Now, KTM said that, that the acceleration figures don't really matter, outright acceleration figures don't really matter on a motorcycle like this, but 0 to 60 will take 2.6 seconds, 0 to 100 will take about 6.2 seconds on this motorcycle. When KTM was designing this new platform, the second generation of the 390cc motorcycles, they designed the chassis in a way that it will be shared with the Duke, with the Adventure, with the Supermoto and the Enduro, and it will work in all of them, in all of those different platforms. So, engineering wise, they say it's sorted. We will have to try it to find out whether this is really the case. Okay. They also said that, this chassis is now designed for comfort over long distance and off-road. They also claim that the chassis is 10% more rigid than the the previous motorcycle's chassis. Okay, seat height, I told you it's 830 millimeters, 25 millimeters lower than before. The bike is quite narrow in the midsection. If the camera comes close and shows them this, just see how narrow the seat is at its slimmest point. Very, very, very narrow. So, very easy to get your foot down. At 5'10", I did not have a problem in getting my feet down. I don't think somebody who's 5'8" would have a problem either. Now, the motorcycle also has adjustable suspension. You've got 30 steps of rebound, and so you've got rebound on the right fork, 30 steps adjustable, and you've got compression, 30 steps adjustable on the left fork at the front, 200 millimeters of travel, and you can fiddle with the clickers and just set it according to your riding needs. You go off-road, you want to increase the rebound speed a little bit, you want to increase the compression a little bit, you can do that. You come back on the street, you want to dial it down, you can do that. The tubeless setup on the wheels. So KTM has patented the technology. They say that even though these seem like regular spoked rims, they have a sealant inside. So it's sealed from the inside, and they say that it's a very rigid setup. It is something which will be puncture proof. Air is not going to leak. And at this point of time, KTM also took a dig, another dig, a second dig at the Himalayan for their cross-spoke rims. They said that, cross-spoke rims, which where the outer lip is exposed, is not as good of a technology as what they have on their motorcycle. The one gripe that a lot of people, including me, had on the previous motorcycle was, if you're riding in the dirt, let's say, you tend to stop your motorcycle in the dirt quite a lot, and you turn off the ignition. In the dirt, you're going to turn your traction control off. You're going to put the motorcycle in the off-road ABS mode. You're going to what do you call it? Um, you're going to disable ABS on the rear wheel. However, as soon as you would turn the ignition off on the previous motorcycle and turn it back on, the settings would reset, and it would be very frustrating to switch everything back again. On this new motorcycle, if you just turn the ignition off and you turn the ignition back on, whatever mode your motorcycle is on, the ignition is going to stay that way. It won't change. It just won't change. So your settings will stay. So that's a positive step. Okay. Then coming to the smaller details, if the camera comes very close to the display over here, I'm going to turn it on. So KTM said that the display and the glass, there is no gap between them. So when it rains, this will not fog ever. The display also gives you turn-by-turn navigation. For that, you need to have a KTM My Ride application. The display will also give you music control. You can take phone calls, you can call people using the navigation. Again, that's, I think, a fantastic feature in today's day and age. There are 3 riding modes on this motorcycle: rain, off-road and street. So in the off-road mode, the traction control is the least aggressive, and the throttle control, the throttle response, is the most aggressive. Usually it's not the case. What happens is the throttle response is the most aggressive in the street mode, and traction control is medium. Traction control is usually very high in the rain mode, and the throttle response is the softest in the rain mode on bigger motorcycles. However, when asked why is the throttle response the sharpest in the off-road mode, which is not the case with most other motorcycles, they said, KTM said that we wanted instant torque delivery, and this is a very low powered motorcycle. At the end of the day, this is a 46 horsepower motorcycle, so it's not going to be a problem. We will try it out tomorrow morning when we ride this motorcycle off-road. The quick shifter on the motorcycle, it has an up and down quick shifter with auto blipper. In the previous motorcycle, the one that I rode, the first generation 390 Adventure, it used to be quite notchy. I didn't like using it much. It felt harsh. KTM says they have retuned it to be responsive and intuitive to use. Take a look at this. For the first time in a motorcycle that is in this class, in this segment, 400cc single, we have cruise control. So you press this button, and then you press the long press the resume or the speed up button. Cruise control gets activated. There's a toggle at the back which you use using your index finger to reduce the speed, and the thumb to increase the speed. And if the amazing part about this quick this cruise control is, if you long press the plus button, the resume button, the speed up increases by 5 kilometers an hour instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you long press the speed down button, similarly it will come down by increments of 5 kmph. I found that to be a very cool thing, because that's not something which is available in my motorcycles or my cars. It just goes up incrementally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. Okay, now KTM said that there will be a few accessories for this motorcycle. If we come here, okay, sorry, over here, you see that this motorcycle just has a side stand. They say that an accessory center stand will be available for this motorcycle. They also said that a bigger fender will be available as an accessory for the motorcycle front fender, so that during the monsoon you are protected from rain. And there will also be, if you come up here at the front, so right now the DRLs and the projector lamps, they are exposed. They also said there'll be a clear headlight mask that will be available. Not a grill, but a plastic mask. Okay. I did ask KTM during the briefing that what about the fog lamps that we have seen, on the Adventure R? Would the fog lamps be available? They did not answer that question. So I'm going to try and press them for an answer again. But currently, no details on the fog lamps for this motorcycle. Some other statistics that KTM told us: the top speed of this motorcycle is 153 kilometers an hour. The fuel economy is 26.5 kilometers per liter, and it has a 14.5 liter fuel tank. KTM did also tell us, now this is the third part of the briefing, they had somebody from Austria that was on a Zoom call telling us, that this motorcycle has a great ergonomic triangle for standing up. I will just stand up on the motorcycle with the side stand on and you can just take a good look. So the pegs are down here. I'm going to drop my heels. Okay. I'm going to hold the bike where it's at its narrowest and just, sort of be like this. Just, push the butt back and ride like this. Very, very, okay, I'm not going to say how it is, but if I sit on the bike, this is what a 5 foot, 10.5 inch guy would look like on the motorcycle. Big windscreen at the front. That's what KTM spoke about. So theoretically, a big windscreen with this cutout over here. If you see this cutout, so it's going to prevent the buffeting of the screen because some wind goes in through here and it doesn't put a lot of pressure on the screen, making it move, making it shake. And it's the fact that it's wide, it's going to provide you a lot of wind protection. We asked KTM during the briefing that what is the difference between the suspension of the India-spec motorcycle and the KTM Adventure R? Is it just that the travel is different, like 230 mm on that and 200 mm on this? They said the length is different, yes, but more than that, the spring rates are different between the two motorcycles. The spring rate on this motorcycle is slightly stiffer, considering you have to take in the fact that India likes to ride with two people on the bike, right? So this bike, they expect it to carry a heavier load than the international motorcycles, which will be used for recreational purposes mostly. People going on, rides with just a little bit of luggage, etc., etc. I asked KTM during the briefing that this motorcycle only has a 14.5 liter fuel tank. Why is it so? Why did you not go with a bigger fuel tank like a 17 or an 18 liter fuel tank, given that it's so capable that you can just do long distances on this motorcycle? So they said that it's a compromise. The fuel tank capacity on this motorcycle is a compromise because they wanted to keep the motorcycle light, they wanted to keep the fuel tank slim, and that is why they came up with a range. This bike will easily do 350 kilometers, and they think that 350 kilometers is good enough for somebody to stop, take a break, refuel, and then ride again. There is another motorcycle that they've launched, which is the Adventure X, which retails for about 2,90,000 rupees or so. I asked them, that motorcycle has a 19-inch wheel at the front, a 17-inch wheel at the rear, and alloy wheels. A person who's buying that motorcycle will mostly be doing road touring. Doesn't it make more sense for that person to have cruise control on their motorcycle rather than having cruise control on this motorcycle? Or even if you want to provide cruise control on this motorcycle, why not have cruise control on that motorcycle as well? So KTM just said, look, it comes down to cost. Cruise control costs money to develop and then to put on a motorcycle. So they had to price it at a certain point. So they omitted cruise control from that motorcycle, which I'm not going to tell, okay, because this is not an opinion riding the motorcycle, but I think it's a big miss to not put cruise control on a road-oriented touring motorcycle, especially when you have it in your participant. The earlier motorcycle, the 390 Adventure, had radially mounted calipers. However, this one, they've gone back to a floating type caliper. So I asked them that, I understand this is a 21-inch wheel and you want the bike to also go off-road, so you don't need that kind of stopping power on the motorcycle. Why is it that you switched from a radially mounted caliper to a floating style caliper? And KTM said that, look, the piston diameter is bigger. We have ensured proper braking on this motorcycle, even though we have gone back to a floating style caliper, and that is something that we will ride and tell you about later. They were harping on the point that this motorcycle is made for the shorter guys. It's not a motorcycle that is made like the previous one, where if you're 5'7", 5'8", it'll seem intimidating. 855 seat 855 seat height, the slightly wider seats, so difficult to get your feet down. This motorcycle is narrow, it's low, it's easy for people to sit on it. That is why the 17-inch rear wheel, so that the rear doesn't get jacked up a lot instead of the 18-inch on the R. So this is very interesting. I asked KTM, I asked the Austrian guy who was, a part of the presentation, that, okay, you're not selling me the ADVR right now in India, but what if I want to make my own ADVR? You're going to launch the Enduro motorcycle. What if I want to swap the suspension on the Enduro motorcycle to this motorcycle, the 230 suspension? What if I put that on this motorcycle, and at the rear I put the 230 suspension from the Enduro on this motorcycle and the 18-inch wheel? Will the bike take it? They said, look, even if it takes it, the traction control and the ABS calibration is different between the 17-inch wheel and the 18-inch wheel. It probably won't work. So they said, don't try and do it. So I think if you want an ADVR, don't go around, go about making your own ADVR. Just wait for them to launch the ADVR. And they also said that the ADVR, at some point of time, it can be made to order. If there is demand, they will bring that motorcycle in. Right now, the bike hasn't been homologated for India, and that is where things stand. I asked them this again, back when this motorcycle was shown at the EICMA show in Milan in November, the display model, it was kitted with the Explorer fork at the front. Now, Explorer is their off-road premium suspension by WP. This motorcycle, it comes with an Apex suspension, which is more street-oriented suspension, budget suspension. Explorer is obviously expensive. I said, will it be available at some point of time in India for people like us to buy? People who want to really ride hardcore and don't think, they're willing to spend the money. So KTM said that, that suspension is only made in Austria, and it comes at a pretty price. So importing it into India will be very expensive. It will not be available off the shelf here for the foreseeable future. But they also said that, the cheaper way of doing it would be retain the outer shell, the outer suspension, and just change the cartridges. The cartridge would fit. So that's what KTM told us, if somebody wants that. Now, somebody had asked in the briefing that, the setup is tubeless. They said that the setup is tubeless, but, since you say that there is some, this thing under it, sealant under it, when do you have to check it? So they said, you can get it checked at 1,000 kilometers, which is the first service. And at every service, the workshop will anyway take a look. They're going to take a look at the motorcycle. You don't have to worry about it. So, yeah. Then a lot of people asked during the briefing that, will the 21-inch wheel fit the older generation motorcycle? KTM would flat out said, no, it won't. All right. And that brings me to the end of, what KTM told us. This is the motorcycle. Now I'm going to take the camera from Ankit and just go through the motorcycle and show you what I think is on this bike that is noteworthy and wasn't mentioned in the briefing. Okay, so this motorcycle has adjustable everything. Now if you take a look over here, the brake lever, it is adjustable for reach. Okay, so is the clutch lever, the gear shifter, foldable. The rear foot pegs, they will come off if you want them to save a little bit of weight. The suspension, adjustable, both ends. I told you earlier about, the brake lever tip, rear brake lever tip, it can be moved back. All of this can be taken off if you want to. Shouldn't be much of a problem. LED lighting all around, which is all basic stuff. You've got a one-piece seat. I wish KTM also provides a taller, straighter Enduro style seat for this motorcycle. I do not know if the Enduro seat from the Enduro motorcycle will fit on this bike. The frame is the same, so ideally it probably should. Handlebar is wide, easy to reach, and you've got this gigantic screen up front with different riding modes and a lot of information. So trip A, trip B, consumption, odometer, gear shifter, speed, the tachometer, you've got your fuel gauge, all the telltale lights, and intuitive, very tactile feeling buttons, easy to click. Your what do you call it, cruise controls here, horn. This is how the horn sounds. Then you've got a custom button. You can just put anything that you want as a shortcut, and the custom button will go to it. Right now it is on the modes of the motorcycle. So all in all, this is the motorcycle. It retails for about 3.6ish or so. Another change that I noticed on this motorcycle than the difference that I see on this motorcycle from the Adventure R is the front fender. The high front fender is shorter on this bike. It doesn't extend all the way back, which looks a little odd in my opinion. But yeah, this is the motorcycle. This is how it looks. And this is all I had to tell you about the briefing of this motorcycle without giving you any opinion on the bike. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate your time and you watching this video. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.